All right, kids. Okay, so today's lesson is a webinar is going to be on bars versus playing in a club, and mainly it's for drummers, but we can do. I mean, it's pretty much applies to any musician playing in a club or a bar. Okay, so when I was a kid in bars, we would have to bring, it would just be a flat stage, and you would have to bring your own PA, your own lights, and all your own instruments. Versus a club, clubs generally have a sound man already there. I would highly recommend that you tip him before the show. Just throw in a kitty, $5-10, and give the guy $20-30 total. Will help make your band sound better. Believe me. Don't have to do this. I found this very useful for me. They will provide the lights and the sound, but you have no control over the sound and the lighting. So when I was a kid, 17 through drinking age, which was 21, we always brought our own PA and lights. Okay, so the PA kept getting bigger and bigger. Started with bass bins. Those are like two Marshall stacks together in one giant. I mean, like barely two people could carry them. Then you have the mids, then you have your horns, and then you have a crossover. So the biggest problem in the sound check was getting a crossover set to each place that we played, because the bass and the mid and the treble, the volume output of each one had to be set. So it was very, very lengthy sound check just to get through that. And generally, in a bar, you can't mic drums. So that in itself is a big problem, because drums by themselves, in a basement, in a room, in a bar, sound horrible. They're very trebly, and they very much outkill the volume-wise of the guitars and the bass and the vocals. So there's a big problem there. So there were actually times, sometimes, where the bars were so small that I would have to like cushion the drums with, at least for the first 5 years I played in bars, we'd have to cushion the drums with gaffer tape, duct tape, or an actual towel over the snare drum. Remember, one place was so small, like, so you're in band practice, you're like slam it, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and when you get to the club, you're like, or the bar, you have to play very lightly. Now you can't play the way that you slammed it in rehearsal. So it's tricky. So the more times that you play in small bars and get the feeling of like, how do I pull this off, make it sound good, and all that stuff, how do I do that when I have no microphones? Maybe 20% of the time we'd throw a 57 in the kick drum, just give a little oomph. But mostly the PA was for vocals, a little bit of guitar, and maybe almost no bass. Okay, so because when you set up, even in a club or a bar, the front line of the drums where the bass drum ends is generally where the back line starts. So you're sitting 4 feet behind that. So you're sitting 3 or 4 feet behind the guitar amplifier and the bass amplifiers. And then the vocal monitors are usually they're aimed at the vocalist, but they're aimed right at you too. So it's very cool and easy to learn or hear the vocalist sing, but you got to hear the guitar player, because he starts and stops a lot of stuff, And when the guitar player solos, you have to be able to hear the bass player so you can play with him. So you got to hear all three people. If there's, 2 or 3 people more involved, the background vocals, keyboard stuff, do you really need to hear that? Not so much. If you can, that's great. Generally, a small bar, you can hear everything, but sometimes not, because what happens is the drums in a bar, the drums are so loud that the guitars and the bass have to turn up so loud to compensate for it that their stage volume is higher than it needs to be. Now, versus a club, when you go into a club in a bigger market, Minneapolis, Chicago, Los Angeles, Nashville, Austin, something like that, the PA system is provided and the light system provided. Don't forget, tip that light guy too. If you want him to change the lights, or if you just want to leave the lights up and just he's going to do nothing but just like look at the girls around him and drink, that's what he'll do. You throw that guy $20 and he'll change the red, green, blue, red, yellow, blah, blah, blah. He'll do a great job. He's not making no money either. You're not making much money. He's not making much money. But tip the guy, for God's sake. If you tip him, you'll get more out of him. Don't do it after the show. You do it before the show. You make best friends with the sound man and the light man. Now, if you're playing in a bar and you're bringing your own PA, you're going to have to bring your own sound man and light man. And if it's a paid gig, you pay them out of your thing. Now, what we did is we paid our sound guy and our light guy, but then we drove our own bus, so we didn't have to pay a bus driver. Generally, the guy that owned the bus, the guitar player, he would almost always drive most of the way to whatever gig we were playing. Generally 2 or 3 hours max out of where we were from in the Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin area, Michigan once. And then sometimes one of us would take over and just drive if it's just straight down the highway. I drove the bus a couple times. I'll tell you right now, buses are hard to drive. They're very hard to drive. This was a school bus converted into, we had a table, then we had bunk beds, we had storage at the bottom, and then it was a block wall, and then the block wall was the back half, and that's where we put in all the PA, all the lighting, and then drum set and the amplifiers, because we were taking everything at that point. When we got to the point where we only playing bigger markets like Minneapolis and Chicago, we got to ditch the PA and the lights, and all we had to do was just put drums and guitars into a van, or 2 people in the van, and then drive a secondary car behind with the other people. Generally, the other 2 people or 3 people in the band, and the light or sound guy or whoever we're bringing. Now, generally in a club, they already have a sound guy there for you, so you're good to go. He knows the PA system. So the difference between a sound check, when you bring your own PA into a bar, and a line check in a club, is a sound check, you set up all your own microphones and you have to test them all. Once the PA sounds good with some kind of music playing through it, and you've tested the bass, the mid, and the horns, and that's all. You get a tape of your favorite band. That sounds good. Now you start checking microphones. Blah 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 blah. You go down the line, and now you play a couple songs and see what the full band sounds like. In a club, you do a line check. Okay, so a line check is different than a sound check. A line check is like, let's say you have like 2 bands playing, 8 bands playing, it doesn't matter. each man leaves and the next man sets up, and then the sound man comes in. He goes boom, boom, boom. You get between 4 and 8 mics on the drum set, and then you get he mics everybody else. So now you're in a situation where everything has to be mic'd up, or it's not going to be heard. It's not like a bar where like all you need to do is put the guitar and vocals through the PA system and you're good. In a club setting, it's bigger, so you have to have everything mic'd up. So a line check is where it's 5 minutes before you play, and what you do is each guy is on stage and he goes ding 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 dun 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 dun, and then he plays a beat and make sure the drum sound, all the mics work. Basically, all you're doing is you're checking to make sure all your microphones work. You need to go to the guitar player, then go to the bass player, and then you go to the vocalist if he's there. Now, when I played one tribute band, Alice Cooper tribute band, Nick never line checked. He had his own wireless mic, and he would put his makeup on like literally 5 minutes before the show, because he's busy mingling before the show. And he would go backstage, put on all his makeup, and then there was a time or two where he'd walk out and start singing, and there's nothing coming out of the microphone. So he's literally doing a mic check as we start in the show, and then all of a sudden, like 2 lines in, he's like, "Welcome to my nightmare," and then all of a sudden we can hear everything. We're like, "Oh, thank God." Okay, now to put this in a drummer's perspective, for drummers, when I'm at a really, really loud rehearsal where guitar amps are hurting my ears, the best thing to do is buy those, they're midline expensive attenuation earplugs. They kind of look like little cones. They're wrapped around little cones, and you can put them in lightly or hard. And what they do is they lower the volume, but they keep all the lows and highs. Now, if you were to take one of those yellow spongy things and shove that in your ear and shove that in your ear, here's the problem. First, you can't hear anybody. Second, you can't hear yourself how you hit the drums. And how you hit the drums and how they're tuned and how you smash them is all in your hands and your playing and how the sound comes out. So for me, mostly it would be, okay, if I'm in rehearsal and it's a big room and everything's at normal volume, I'll just bash the drums. So that's at 100 to 110 decibels if you have 22-inch ride cymbals and loud snare drums. One thing you don't want to do is really, when you're playing all the time, you really want to sit up straight. And the reason you want to sit up straight is to keep your ears as far away from your snare drum and your ride cymbals as you possibly can. Because when you put your head down and you start smashing the, you increase the decibel level from maybe 100 to maybe 120 plus. Okay, that's the Who's Guinness Book of World's Record loudness. That's the Learjet. Remember the Learjet? That was a short-lived route between New York and London. The Learjet. Speed of sound. That's 120 plus decibels. You are only good for that without damaging your hearing till about the 5 to 10 minute mark. If you've got a 90-minute show, you cannot be putting your head down and just going and slamming on 22-inch rides and cracking and turning your head and cracking a snare drum. You got to sit up straight. Stay away from that, because you're already at 100 to 110 with your 19-inch crashes, your 20-inch crashes, your deep snare drum, and then the problem with wearing the earplugs, even the attenuation bringing down earplugs at a live show, because I always do it at rehearsal with really loud guitar players. The problem with doing it in a live show is generally the back line starts where the bass drum front ends. So you're sitting 3 feet behind the guitar player over here, maybe the bass player over here, or whatever. And you need to hear all 3 people. So vocal monitors, generally you can hear in a smaller club out of those. Bigger clubs, they generally have it set up where they have drum monitors, but what they'll do is, like the House of Blues and the Whiskey A Go-Go in Hollywood, they will pump your drums first through those monitors, which is great because you just hear, you don't even have to hit as hard. You're just like, man, my drums sound awesome. But really, you don't really need to hear your drums any louder than they are where in front of you sitting, but it sounds so good. You don't say shit. But then you're taken away from, man, I need to hear that guy on the left and that guy on the right. So be very careful in big clubs because they'll pump you through their stuff. You don't kind of want that. You need to hear the other people. Let your sound be raw. You don't need to hear how good your drums sound like out front on the floor or up above, but they'll give that through the monitor because those clubs are so big that they just like blah blah blah. They'll put that through there first. Is that just like, I don't need so much kick drum in my monitor. I need to hear the guitar player because I can feel it, hear it. I'm playing it. I need to hear that guy because otherwise they'll just make it your whole monitor system just goes deuce to ka, deuce to ka, and you go, God, this sounds awesome. Is this what it sounds like up front? And you're all excited and freaked out, and it's fun. But don't do that. So when you get to a club, you don't need to. You can put everything in a van. You can forget about the bass, the crossovers, the lights, but since you're not paying those people to be on the road with you, now you should tip those people. Because generally, like, let's say for me, like in Los Angeles, there'd be 4 or 5 guys in the band. Everybody will show up at a specified time-ish, and everybody will bring their own gear. So I put all my drums in my Camaro. The guitar player brings all his guitar gear. Da-da-da-da. We all get there early. We're hanging out. We hang out with some fans, have a good time, get everything ready on the side. So when it's our turn to go up and set up, all the spikes are ready. All you do is plug in the cables for the guitars, blah, 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 and then you do the line check. So the line check is you're just hitting every drum and making sure every microphone works. And generally, the sound man already knows the show, the set, the bar, the club, the sound. So you're just making sure everything that he just set up or just tore down from the last band and just reset up on your band, on your drum set, everything, that it works. So you're going to go click, 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 doom, 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 crack, 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 doom, 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 doom. And you say play a beat. And the guitar player's turn, and he'll rip something out. You don't really play a song or any of that kind of thing. You don't have time for that. You're just making sure that mics work for 10 minutes while they're trying to pump some other kind of music louder through the PA system so that doesn't bother the crowd for 5 minutes while you're getting ready to play. And then you play your show, and then you want to get off right away, but it's better off that you do small things until that sound man comes up and starts ripping those mics away and wrapping the cables where he's ready for either the next band or if you're last, the next day. In my thing, I generally always was the headliner, so I always played last. So it was very nice. I could get off stage, go to the dressing room, changed my t-shirt so I wasn't all wet, come out, the girls want to hug you, buddies want to high-five you, and it's all fun. And then once he's done taking all those mics off the stage, then you just rip your drums down or your guitars down or whatever and put everything away. Now, if you're in the middle or the beginning, then you got to start taking that stuff apart right away. But what you don't want to do is start throwing mics away real far to get your stuff down. Be very careful. Take them down one by one. Look at the cable. Look what you're doing. Take them down and put them down. Put the snare drum mic by the snare drum. Put the floor tom mic over on the floor tom mic. Don't rip stuff apart and make it hard for the sound guy, because the next time you come back, he's not gonna like you. I went to shows where it's like, oh, it's you again. I'm like, what? Who's me again? He goes, you got that awesome drum set. It's all tuned up. I don't have to do nothing. This, man, you're the best. So put your kit up, and I got you, man. So that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that even if you don't know their names or can't remember their names or whatever, that you always show up. Your kit's tuned and ready to go. Your guitars are tuned and ready to go if you're a guitar player. And then after that, just be professional. If you got to get your shit off right away because another band's coming up, get your shit off right away. But don't fuck the sound man around because you just want to throw everything around. Take everything off very carefully. Respect the fact that every microphone is just as expensive as every drum you own. Every drum you have is $300. Every mic he has is $300. So be diligent about respecting everybody involved. And you'll have a much better show. You'll have a lot less stress. Show's going to go better. Show's going to sound better. And everything's going to be great. Back in the day when, I can also say the only time that I came back to having to do lights and PA was when I started playing only Hollywood, like velvet rope kind of clubs. Okay, so they never had bands. So all the clubs in Los Angeles, you just show up with your drum set, bring it in, it's all tuned up, everybody shows up, da 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 da. Sound man comes in, da 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 da, sets up all the mics, do a line check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he plays a show. Very fast, very simple. Takes like 10-15 minutes. But most of the velvet rope bars that I played, it was a 2-piece band. Okay, only 2 guys, but generally they never had bands, and we had to bring in. I don't even know where the guy got the PA, because I only brought my drums. But we'd have to set up the whole PA, all our own lights, and then we have to get there at like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, set up all that stuff, hook it all up with electrical cords and all that stuff. Do our own sound check. Maybe find somebody who can run the sound to make sure that his guitar and vocal were cool versus my drum. And some of these rooms were very big. But we had to make it happen. But generally, no. If you're in a big city, you're probably not going to be playing any bars. If you're that small, you might play like acoustic shows, maybe. I would guess. Like, I live in Orange County, so I would guess, like, if I want to play a few of my originals, I'd go to like a restaurant that's got outside COVID seating. I saw a girl there playing the other day, and she was playing all of her own stuff. She gave me a business card, blah, blah, blah. And that was cool. But otherwise, it's generally clubs that have everything for you. You just got to make sure that you show up prepared, ready, tuned up, So all you're doing is, when it's your turn, everything is set up on the side. Your cymbals are set up on a stand to the height you want them. The snare drum's already on a stand, all locked up and ready to go. You can't just bring in your gear and wait for the other band to leave and then you start setting up your drum set. You better have your bass drum spurs out. You better not have to tune. You better have everything ready to go. Get to the bar or club early. Be professional and get it ready to go. There's no reason why you can't get home from work, eat dinner, get ready to go, do your hair, do your clothes, take a shower, and still get there early at 7 or 8 o'clock with your drums, your amps, and be ready to go for your, I mean, normally, if you're playing a club, you're only going to play 1 hour max to 90 minutes. Sometimes less than that. Maybe it would be 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Very rare you're going to play 2 hours. In a bar, in a smaller situation, in a smaller town, you may have to play 2 or 3 sets, maybe 4 hours, where you're doing 40 songs. I mean, when I was a kid, we did 40 to 45 songs per night. And we'd book a 3-night show, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, start at 8 and end at 1. And we used to do 4 sets. That was 3 breaks. That was too many. Too many people left during the last break. And then we got smart and we did 3 breaks, which is better. You do an hour 15, and then an hour. So, I mean, that's like how Van Halen grew up. That's how my band grew up. So you can get in that situation where you're doing that. But that might be a thing where you have to be there by, like, no later than 5 or 6 o'clock. If you're in a bar and doing 40, 50 songs a night, you're probably bringing your own PA system. Maybe not. In that case, you better get there early. Have a whole giant box of electrical cords, because you have no idea how long you might have to go to plug something in. And if you're bringing your own PA and lights, that's a lot of stuff to plug in. And normally the stage will have like 2 boxes with outlets. That's good for the guitars and this and that. That's not gonna fly for a whole PA and light system. You gotta have cords going all the way. Gotta have a snake. It's important to have at least a 16-channel snake. I wouldn't go with 8, just in case you had a mic, a bass drum or an overhead mic on the drums, or you got 3 background singers and the vocalist. Just get a 16. I mean, there's no the monetary difference between that small and a 16. A 16 would almost handle all your needs. You get everything in the soundboard, boom, you're gone, you're gone. Show's gonna go great. So there's my advice to the up and coming kids and teenagers and young adults who gonna start playing live. It's the best. I was addicted from day one. I don't care if there's 5 people watching, 500, 5,000. I could care less. I love playing live. You're gonna love playing live. You just want to make it as smooth and nice as possible, so that the show part out of this whole, 3-hour to 13-hour day, could be 3 hours, could be 13 hours, you don't know. You want it to go as smooth as possible and as stress-free as possible, so when you are playing the music for your hour or 2 hours or whatever, you're just gonna rock it. All right? Gotcha. See you soon. Bye.